What's up, everybody? It is I, TevinElChopo. Friends call me Chop, and we are back with another review. This time, we're talking about Amazon Prime's new show, Batman Caped Crusader. So, Batman Caped Crusader is the new animated show that stars the character Batman. If you don't know who Batman is, I'm not quite sure why you'd be watching this video. He's a well-known superhero who's been in many adaptations up until this point, and this one pretty much takes place in the 1950s aesthetic and essentially retells the beginning stages of his crime fighting career. Now, right off the bat, I must say that I was looking forward to this show a lot. I was definitely looking at a lot of the promotional material that was coming out, definitely intrigued with the more 1950s aesthetic that they're going for, and was definitely interested in just a lot of the things that I was hearing and seeing about the show. And now that I have seen all the episodes, I must say that I have been left disappointed. First things first, I want to start with the things that I liked about the show. I did in fact like a lot of the character designs that they had, especially for Batman. I think that the more old school aesthetic of his costume was definitely interesting. I think there was one for sure character design that I did not care for that I'm going to speak on later in the video, but other than that, I think that everyone's designs was done pretty well. I was also interested in the voice cast, especially with Batman being played by Hamish Linklater, someone that I've seen in many things like New Adventures of Old Christine, or also even in the show Legion that was on FX. And honestly, I could not tell that that was him just based on listening to not only his Batman voice, but his Bruce Wayne voice. I thought that he did a great job, and I hope that he does get other opportunities to play Batman in the future, honestly. I also think that the animation was solid overall. I didn't have any particular issues. There were a couple times where some of the animation was a little stilted, specifically where characters were running, but overall, I didn't have too many issues with the animation, and there was plenty of times where I thought that the animation was actually fairly good. Now, like I said before, I didn't particularly care for this show as much as I thought I would. It did leave me disappointed. Now, granted, I'm not saying that it is a bad show by any means. I have definitely seen worse shows, this year, but I do think that it was a bit of a letdown for a few reasons. Now, the biggest elephant in the room is going to be the comparisons to the Batman animated series that came out in the 90s, especially with Bruce Timm, who also helped on that show, being part of the production of this show as well. And I think one of my biggest gripes with this show is that it's not really doing too much to set itself apart from the original animated series from the 90s. Like, I get that it's taking more of a 1940s, 1950s approach to Batman and his rogues gallery, but at the same time, realistically, when you watch Batman the animated series over, you would notice that a lot of that aesthetic was already in the original show, especially towards the very beginning. Obviously, as the Batman character went on to go into things like the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, he was definitely brought into the 21st century, but specifically the original first season of Batman the animated series had a lot of blends with 1940s, 1950s aesthetics that were in Batman culture at the time. Now, granted, that show was able to take those themes and blend it with a lot of the aesthetics from the 1989 Batman movie that Tim Burton directed. Also, as I watched the show, I couldn't help but notice that a lot of the changes that were made to a lot of the characters weren't necessarily made for the sake of making better storylines, more interesting or engaging stories, or even making the characters more engaging either. Like, for instance, introducing Harley Quinn without her necessarily being introduced through the Joker, I thought was an interesting take on her character, even though I didn't particularly feel like it did anything to propel her character in a different light. She ended up essentially in a plot that could have had her be interchanged with the Joker at any given moment. So I felt like it didn't do any credit for the character of Harley Quinn, nor did it portray her in a different light than we've already seen in the many adaptations of the character at this point. And also, I just want to say for the record, I'm actually getting tired of seeing Harley Quinn and the Joker in so many different Batman related mediums. Like, Batman has such a large rogues gallery, and I just don't understand why we must continuously tell stories with Harley Quinn and the Joker. Even in this show, right when we got to the last episode, and I thought to myself that, man, we actually went through an entire Batman animated show and didn't get one Joker reference. And of course, the very last scene in the very last episode is to tease the Joker in the next season. Like, come on now.
Hey, bro, come on now, dog. Come on, man.
Like, I can appreciate them trying to do different things with the characters, but I just don't think we need another Harley Quinn adaptation, and we definitely don't need another Joker adaptation at this point. Also, full transparency, I am a major Batman fan. He is for sure one of my favorite superheroes, so there were certain things throughout this show that I particularly didn't like that you may not particularly care about, but I will call this portion of the video Tevin's nitpicks. And I'm going to start with nitpick number 1. First of all, I do not like Batman using his Batman voice all the time. It's one thing when he's in the costume, when he's out in the streets being Batman, to talk like Batman, but I found that there was a lot of times where he didn't need to have that tone of voice, especially when he's talking to Alfred and he was still talking like Batman. But then when he was talking in public as Bruce Wayne, he was talking in a more lighthearted voice. And I get that that was partially a direction, similar to having Batman call Alfred Pennyworth throughout most of the show, which, side note, is another nitpick of mine. I do not like that at all, and it came off super pretentious on Batman's part. And I get that the whole point of him doing those things is to essentially have him grow out of it, because again, this is the early phases of his crime fighting career and he's trying to learn and adapt and everything like that. And I truly understand it, I really do, but it just comes off as very pretentious. It also comes off as pointless. Like, why do you need to talk like Batman in front of Alfred? Alfred has known you your whole life. You don't have to have that tone of voice with him ever. And like I said, I guess a nitpick, but I just want to make sure I highlighted it. Nitpick number 2, I have no problem with them gender or race swapping any character throughout the entire show, but if you were going to gender swap the Penguin, why did you make her a thickums?
I was like, damn nigga, what you doing out here with all this ass? Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon, hella ass, the sun is still out, my nigga, and it was just, I don't know, I mean.
Like, it was just very distracting. All right, I found it very distracting just how thick the Penguin was. All right, she could really start her OnlyFans, maybe with a bag over her face, because I didn't find her attractive, but I really just did not like that. Like, just make her like the shape of a penguin or something. I don't know, like, why does she have to be shaped like that? I just found that very distracting. Maybe it's just me, but yeah, that's another one of my nitpicks. Now for nitpick number 3, I will say that I do appreciate that a lot of the villains got introduced before they became villains in the show, especially Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face. But my nitpick with that is that Harvey Dent in this show is kind of portrayed as an asshole, and not like the typical asshole, like he's just being mean to people who he prosecutes in court or anything like that. Like, no, he acts like an asshole towards practically everyone except for Bruce Wayne, and I think that kind of undercuts his tragic development into Two-Face. Now correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I always thought that part of the reason why Harvey Dent's transition into Two-Face was so engaging was because essentially we're looking at a good man have a mental break. But in this show, essentially we're looking at an asshole become a bigger asshole. And I think that that's the type of change that definitely just doesn't make me care as an audience member. And even when he slowly does descend into becoming Two-Face, it doesn't really feel like a drastic change from who he already was before. And I guess I'm really done with the super nitpicky stuff, but I will say that overall, even aside from all the things that I just said, I just didn't find this show to be super engaging. I didn't particularly care about any of the storylines really happening. The show wasn't doing enough for me to resonate with any of the characters at all. Like I said, I think Harvey Dent's descent into Two-Face is probably the most engaging arc in the entire show, and I understand why they decided to make it the very last 2 episodes of the season. But other than that, man, it's like every plot was just so run-of-the-mill, very typical, just the only difference being that it's in a 1940s aesthetic essentially. And again, that's not that big of a difference if you realize that a lot of that aesthetic was already in the original Batman the Animated Series. And I think that's even part of the problem too. Given the amount of Batman adaptations that we've gotten over the years at this particular point in 2024, what is this show doing or saying that is so much different, or even so much better, or even so much setting itself apart from the others that is going to maintain audience retention? I just don't particularly understand, because even as I'm watching this show, realistically, I just kept asking myself, who exactly am I supposed to be rooting for? Maybe Commissioner Gordon, maybe Barbara Gordon, maybe the non-crooked cops that are on the GCPD, maybe. But the thing about it is, this is a Batman show, and they did not make Batman likable enough for me to care about anything that happens to him. And actually, let me bring bring back the nitpicks for a second because that just reminded me. One major nitpick that I had at the very last episode of the show, and this may be a little bit of a spoiler, I'll just throw a spoiler alert on the screen just for the sake of this, but Batman points a gun at someone and fires the gun right at someone's head. Now granted, he misses on purpose and then he sees the error in his ways and he throws the gun into the river, whop the bam. I get all that, but the problem I'm having is that no way on earth is Batman ever going to even attempt to do something like that. Like in the first episode of Batman Beyond, and Batman is older and struggling to fight off the criminals and he points a gun at someone, he's doing that at the most last resort thing that he possibly can do to protect his life, and he doesn't fire the gun, and that mistake makes him not want to be Batman anymore. So to have this Batman be someone who is not only an asshole to his only guardian, which is Alfred, but also the type of person who points and shoots guns at people, I'm just like, what are we doing? What are we really doing? Do we really know the character? Are we trying to explore the character in a better light? And again, this is more the point I've been trying to make this whole video, which is that it made a lot of liberties with a lot of the characters and the character designs, but it didn't do anything to really make the characters better. If anything, I feel like the changes have made the characters worse. Like introducing Harley Quinn without Joker makes her character worse because everything she does is just going to be mimicked when the Joker inevitably gets shown in the show. Making Harvey Dent an asshole before he becomes Two-Face undermines him becoming Two-Face because now we don't sympathize with his story at all. And making Batman so much of an asshole that he is always talking in his Batman voice even when he's not in the costume, and he's also being very pretentious to Alfred of all people and firing guns at people, it just doesn't necessarily make me want to root for this Batman at all. And again, at this point, there's so many different Batman adaptations that does so much more justice for the character that I don't particularly see a reason for me to continue watching this show. Like, it wasn't terrible, it's not the worst show that I've ever seen, and it's not even the worst DC show that I've ever seen, but it is definitely not engaging or interesting or compelling enough for me to continue to watch it. Like, if you want to watch a high quality Batman animated show, just watch Batman the Animated Series from the 90s, or watch the Justice League show, or watch Justice League Unlimited, or watch Batman Beyond, or watch the animated show The Batman that came out in the early 2000s. Or you can watch literally any Batman movie that's come out in the last 25 years or so. Like I said, the show is trying to be different, but it's not trying to be different enough or different in ways that I find interesting or compelling or even respectful to the source material. And I think that is very disappointing, especially since I was actually excited to watch this show. Like, y'all do not understand how much I do not want to make this review negative, but this review has been pretty negative. Like, I wanted to come on here and really tell y'all that I enjoyed the show a lot and that I can't wait to see it again. But honestly, I'm probably not going to watch this anymore. If something compels me around the time the next season comes out to watch it, I maybe watch the first episode and see how I feel about it from there. But more than anything, this show just made me more nostalgic for Batman the Animated Series, and honestly, many times throughout watching it just made me want to watch Batman the Animated Series. But hey, these are just my opinions. Have you seen Batman Caped Crusader on Amazon Prime? What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like it. My name is TevinElChopo. Friends call me Chop, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.